Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, Dynasty. I am your host, Heath Cummings, joined today by Matthew Rupert of Couch Scouts. Matthew, thank you for being here today. Just tell everybody real quick here at the top what you've been working on and where they can find your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us again. Always love getting to come on. Yeah, so we've been working hard getting our members ready for draft season, helping them with drafts, rebuilds, whatever they may need. CouchScouts.com is our website. We have packages for as low as $5 a month and as high as $8 a month, and you can cancel anytime. So if you just want to check out what we have, if you don't like it, feel free to cancel. No hard feelings. And so we have our rookie guide, which is kind of like our bread and butter, 172 pages, I believe, of rookie scouting, our scoring grades, all of our rankings for the rookies and tiers. And then we also have an all-22 film room where you can scout underclassmen. So guys like Arch Manning, Jeremiah Smith, if you want to watch his all-22, even though we all know he's great already. So you can get ahead on scouting for future years. So you can kind of get an idea when you're starting to trade future picks to, kind of know who you may be able to target in those drafts.
That's a great introduction to today's show, because the two things I really want to talk about are those rookies, and we've talked about them since the draft, but I just kind of wanted to give a little overview of what, if anything, has changed for Matthew with the class of 2025 over the last couple of months. And I'll talk about a few things that I've maybe slightly adjusted, but also I want to dig into that class of 2026, because contenders or rebuilders alike may be thinking, okay, how much are these 2026 picks really worth? Dynasty Dave in the chat says a Buka hype train season. We will certainly talk about that as well in just a little bit. But let's start with three questions for our guest. And let's just find out who your favorite rookie at cost has been so far. Who's your most drafted rookie this summer and why?
The first one wasn't a surprise to me. So it came out to be a tie. I have two guys where I got 5 shares each this offseason. The first one was Travis Etienne. I just loved his tape. Right. I get that his production profile wasn't the best, and then he went to a crowded backfield with the Panthers. But to me, I'm just going to bet on the talent that I saw, and especially at the price where I've been getting him in the 4th round pretty much every time, or even late 3rd. So I've come away with a ton of shares of him. And then Oran Gadsden is another guy that I really liked his tape when I watched it, and I was just like, I pray that he bulks up enough and really refines more of the nuances of the tight end position with run blocking and everything like that, to where he can really be a contributor. And he landed in a great spot, I thought. So I've been getting a ton of shares of him in the 4th round and even undrafted in a couple weeks.
For sure. I wrote about him yesterday, and I don't know if I've mentioned this yet this week, but I did update Dynasty rankings for all 4 positions. Those are all over on the site. All of them are live now, and Gadsden was probably the rookie tight end that had moved up the most for me. Now, he was quite a ways down the tight end rankings, and kind of the point that I made was, this is a guy, and I've already seen it happen in a couple of my leagues, that was maybe still on the waiver wire in your Dynasty league, and certainly someone you want to add and probably put into a practice squad situation. There's a good chance he's behind Will Dissly and Tyler Conklin this year, but there was lots of positive buzz coming out on him from OTAs, and it could be a very good situation for sure. Let's get to question number 2. 5 years from now, you got to look into the future. How are we viewing, which class are we viewing as the best between the 2025, 2026, and 2027 rookie draft classes?
It's hard to discount the 2027 class, which is all those like super like free generational talents that's at the top of that draft, with Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, Rayola, potentially Arch Manning. But I just can't look past the 2025 draft. To me, and I said this a lot this offseason, that to me, this appears to be a situation like, I think it was 2017 running back class, where we had CMC, Kamara, Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Kareem Hunt, like just a plethora of running backs that were just staples on dynasty leagues for 5 years and some 8 years now. And I think we're going to look back on the 2025 class in a similar way with just how deep the running back position was, even if it may take time for some of them to get their opportunities just based on the landing spot.
It is an interesting thing, and I've also almost kind of wondered if we're maybe entering a little bit of a drought period at the quarterback position, but the running back class looks so spectacular. It'll be interesting to look back 5 years from now and see how many of these guys are still starters in the NFL. And you're right, if 5 or 6 of them are, then it's going to be hard to overlook this class as the best of the last 3. It can be one of the guys we're going to talk about later. We can just go ahead and have the conversation, or it can be somebody that I didn't even put in the notes. But who is the biggest mover in your rookie rankings since the NFL draft?
Gadsden is one, but I'll list a name that that isn't him, since we'll talk about him later. Mason Taylor for me. He's a guy that I thought he looked so fluid on film for such a big guy. He lacked a little bit of the refinement at the position, but looking at the lens of he's 20 years old as a tight end, we know that it takes tight ends a while to develop. So being that young and showing that much promise at LSU, and then getting a elite draft capital in second round, and then going to a team that's just been desperate for a tight end since Dustin Keller, I believe, since they've really had an impact player there. And, I've seen a little bit of buzz, probably overhyping some practice clips, but to me, it's hard to look past the pedigree as well, when you have those bloodlines that he has, and then what he was able to do as a 20-year-old, I think was impressive. So I think he's a guy that has a ton of upside. So he moved up about 17 spots for me since the draft, and he's a guy that I've gotten shares of late second round, early third round.
Yeah, I've actually got Taylor right now as my tight end 4 in the class, just behind, well behind, obviously, Loveland and Warren, and then it's Fannin for me, and then it's Taylor. And I think one of the things that we talk a lot about in the context of redraft, maybe not so much in Dynasty, is that the way that we find these undrafted or late drafted tight ends that matter for fantasy in a given year is because, they're second on their team in targets. Right now, the wide receiver 2 battle for the Jets is between Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard. Yeah. So there's certainly some target opportunity there. It's just whether Taylor at his very young age is ready to make that contribution early, or you're going to be waiting. I think you're probably going to be waiting, but he might splash just a little bit in his rookie campaign and give you some hope for the future. Let's take our first break, and then we'll talk about some other rookies that may or may not have changed their value over the last couple of months.
Here we go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays.
He's got his receiver touchdown.
Filled with rematches.
Oh, the play of the year.
And rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals.
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns. And an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
I'll say it again. I've said it before. Love, love, love that we're close enough to football season to where we're advertising football games. It's not that far away. Can't wait. Let's get into the questions about the 2025 rookies. Let's start with the quarterback position. I didn't even put a specific name here because as I go through my rankings, not much has changed for me at the quarterback position. Jackson Dart's pretty much right where I thought he was going to be, getting a little bit of positive buzz, but clearly behind Russell Wilson for as long as that team can even pretend like they're competitive. Tyler Shuck maybe got the best news with the Derek Carr retirement, but I'm still not entirely sure that he's going to win that job outright as a rookie. We basically, other than the fact that Shedeur Sanders has had some problems with speeding and gotten a little bit of positive camp buzz, I haven't heard enough between him and Dylan Gabriel to really change my opinion there. So with saying all that, has anything at all changed for you at the quarterback position since the draft?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Not much has changed for me. Pretty much exactly what we expected. And Shuck's the only one that's moved up because of Carr's retirement. And then they didn't sign Aaron Rodgers or, someone to come in there and, like you said, act like they can compete. But to me, I liked Rattler's film better, so I think he's going to probably win the job. So I don't have any shares myself, but if I did have shares, I would say try and take this opportunity to sell them for,
Right.
whatever you can
If
get for
somebody
them at this
thinks that
point.
he's all of a sudden become a rookie starter, it
Yeah.
would be a good time to sell based on that news. I would agree with that. I didn't even have him. I didn't even move him up after that news. He's still kind of sitting in the same spot. So I understand why some people gave him a little boost. If the boost was big, then I would certainly be selling. Let's move to a position that's definitely had at least a little bit more news. And RJ Harvey's Broncos added J.K. Dobbins to the mix since we first started ranking him. And I know if you look at the redraft world, it's had a pretty significant impact on Harvey's ADP. There were some people who thought that Harvey had a chance to come in and be a feature back for the Broncos right away. I wasn't really one of those people, so my adjustment wasn't quite as big. I changed some of the young other guys, the Audric Estime, the Jaleel McLaughlin, and gave those touches to Dobbins. But my expectations for Harvey are relatively the same. But does it change his dynasty value at all with the Dobbins signing in Denver?
I think slightly. It's hard to look past the fact that he's 24 years old as a rookie, and then he's going to have some runs,
some real competition for touches. Yeah.
So I don't think it moves him that much. I think it moves him down to where I kind of had him, because I had him more as the early second round pick, and he was going 108, 109, and a bunch of draft styles in, and I think it's moving him back just slightly to kind of where I already had him. I was able to get one share, and that's because he fell to like 203 or 204 in a draft. And that's kind of where I have him valued. I don't think he's going to be a bell cow. I think he's going to be an electric running back. I really love his tape. He's really good in space. So I have no doubt that Sean Payton's going to be a magician, getting him the ball in space, kind of like a Darren Sproles or Pierre Thomas back in the day. So I think it moves him down slightly in most people's eyes, but kind of where I had him in mind.
So
because I was behind the consensus a little bit.
Clearly behind Genty, Hampton, Henderson, Judkins, and Johnson for you?
Absolutely, yeah.
How do you compare Harvey to, there's a trio of wide receivers, and we'll talk about them here in just a moment, but there's three wide receivers that I've kind of kept attached but changed the order a few times: Matthew Golden, Emeka Egbuka, and Luther Burden. How do you compare Harvey to those three?
I like Emeka exponentially more. Burden, I had them in the same area.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I kind of view him in the middle there.
Okay. Now, I see a comment in the chat from Melissa that says Harvey went over Henderson and Judkins in my draft. I don't think that's abnormal. I saw that in a lot of my drafts. Saw him go 105 or 106 in a couple of 1 QB drafts. I don't think we would see that now. So like maybe if you didn't, and one of the reasons I wanted to do this is I have a rookie draft that starts in less than 48 hours. And I've been not taunting everyone in the chat, but like no one's talking about it or excited. And it might be because I have the 1st, the 6th, and the 8th pick that I'm the only person that's excited in that league. But I'm really ready to go. But I've got that, and I've got 3 other rookie drafts that aren't scheduled yet. And at least one of those leagues, I'm wondering if it's getting ready to just fall apart. But I know there are some people that really would prefer to do the rookie drafts in July or maybe even in August, and I already have those scheduled. And so I wanted to kind of give some updated thoughts on these rookies. There are a couple of low-end round 3, round 4 running backs: Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Brashard Smith, who received some positive buzz at camp. The coaches and players saying nice things about them. Are these the types of things, like, do they matter for either one of those guys? Or should we just be like, if you happen to draft them, great, positive things are being said, I'm not changing where I rank them?
Yeah. Merritt was a guy that I thought was okay. I don't think he's going to be like any kind of starter or cornerstone on your dynasty team. I think he's a guy that's just going to be like a solid pro, probably a perennial backup. May have some weeks, where he goes off, where he gets 20 plus carries. He was a little tight hipped, didn't have elite breakaway speed or anything like that. On the other hand, I'm pretty much all in on Smith as like a
great. Yes.
I really liked his film. You could see the inexperience being a converted wide receiver to running back in between the tackles with being patient, letting his blocks develop. So I'm hoping that's something that he can refine in time. But my gosh, in space, he is so electric. He had that breakaway speed and acceleration to eliminate angles. And then as a pass catching weapon, you see his wide receiver background, like going up and getting balls, like high pointing it, running routes. And to me, like when he was paired up with Andy Reid, that was just kind of a dream scenario. So I've gotten about 4 shares. So he's probably like in the second tier of like most owned players for me.
And I think like anything good that gets said about him just highlights to me kind of what I'm expecting out of this Chiefs backfield, which is mayhem.
Yeah.
I really think they might have a guy in Pacheco who's the best rusher on most of the field, and a guy like Smith who's the most electric. And then if you're in short yardage right now, I think most people would have to admit that giving the ball to Kareem Hunt might be the right answer. Because if you need 2 yards, Kareem Hunt gets you 2 yards. Now, if you need 5, he might still get you 2. Yeah. But he's a little bit better at hitting that hole than Pacheco is on the short yardage situations, which, if that's the way it works out, is just a complete disaster based on where Pacheco is being valued. But a real opportunity for Smith, as you say, if he can learn some of the early down stuff and some of the between the tackle stuff a little bit better. He certainly has a lot of upside if he's that pass catching back for Andy Reid. Let's move to the wide receivers. And I want to contrast a couple of guys, because you've talked about how Ibuka's been well ahead for you anyway. But we've gotten nothing but glowing reports about him in Tampa. And like, it may not matter if Chris Godwin's healthy. Ibuka may just have a big role in this offense regardless. They love him. I thought he was the most polished wide receiver coming into this draft, and that's exactly what Tampa said. He's ready to play right now. On the flip side of that, somebody who for a lot of people was in the same tier, Luther Burden, is all upside and no floor, and unfortunately missed OTAs with a soft tissue injury that no one's being very specific about. I think probably the Burden missing matters more to me than the glowing Ibuka stuff, other than it just confirms my priors, so I like it. Is that do you have as much reservation as I do, and even Colston Loveland, about pass catchers missing OTAs and missing summer work?
Absolutely. I'm in lockstep with you there. Exactly what we expected from Ibuka. Like you said, so polished, a pro's pro, team first guy, coach's dream, and he's just doing exactly what we thought. Burden, on the other hand, he had those character concerns that, came out. Who knows exactly what all went into that, but it certainly seemed to contribute to his drop in the draft. So that combined with, an ambiguous soft tissue injury and Ben Johnson seemingly getting onto him a little bit, not happy about it. He's the guy that could get in the doghouse and, basically have a borderline redshirt fresh rookie year. So I'm definitely more worried about Burden. With Loveland not having those kind of concerns, I'm not as worried about him. And then also with Burden, you got 2 really good wide receivers ahead of you that you have to work to get in front of, whereas Loveland has Cole Kmet, who's a solid tight end, but not a lead, and didn't get the same kind of investment from the team.
I felt like before the draft, it was a mixed consensus, but Warren ahead of Loveland was the consensus. And then after the draft, it was mixed, but it was Loveland ahead of Warren. And now it seems when I go and look at rankings, a lot of times it's Warren 1 spot ahead of Loveland. Which one do you prefer? And is the fact that Tyler Warren was involved in everything the Colts did during OTAs and Colston Loveland wasn't there during OTAs enough to be a tiebreaker?
The tiebreaker to me was, so I had in my film grade for them, it was like 0.03 or something like that. It was just completely neck and neck with my film grade. So with Loveland going to the wizard of Ben Johnson, who knows how to use a tight end, scheme guys open, has a better, or what looks like a better quarterback in Caleb Williams compared to Anthony Richardson.
We hope so.
To me, that's the tiebreaker. So I had Warren slightly ahead pre-draft, and then with landing spot with the coach and quarterback, I bumped Loveland just slightly ahead. So the OTA stuff hasn't really been a tiebreaker for me. I have them back to back in my rankings, just Loveland 1 spot ahead of Warren.
Okay. Yeah, I still have Loveland ahead of Warren. I think I've shrunk the gap a little bit because I was Loveland above Warren before the draft. The gap got bigger because of the draft, and now just a little bit of concern. There's some talk that Cole Kmet's not completely going away this year, and Loveland's not. Like, maybe Cole Kmet would go completely away if Loveland was fully acclimated for the offense for week 1, but it's kind of hard to believe. I'm not even 100% sure he's going to be a full go at the start of training camp. That's kind of where the timetable points towards, but I do think we'll see Loveland fall even a little bit more if he misses a week or 2 of training camp, and maybe even become a better value. Sticking with the wide receivers, the buzz hasn't been as positive for Trey Harris and Jack Bech. Harris, maybe more because the Chargers keep talking about how Quentin Johnston's still a starter there. And Jack Bech, it seems like, just isn't quite getting what the Raiders want him to do. And he may be duplicitous with Jacoby Myers and just kind of behind him for as long as Myers is there. Have you felt any of that negativity on either one of those two players? Have you considered moving either one down?
I haven't really moved them down. I think they've been appropriately priced. I've been seeing them in the mid to late second round. I have seen Harris go early second, which is too rich for me. I had them both a very similar film grade as well. I think they're like 1 point off. I had them more as a flex option. I don't think they're a plug and play starter. I don't think they probably ever will be. I think they're just solid prospects. So I don't think it's a real opportunity to go buy them and expect them to, anchor your wide receiver 2 spot on your dynasty roster. But if someone's freaking out enough, it's definitely worth putting out feelers to see if you can buy low on them. But I'm not too worried about both because I didn't have the highest expectations. I expected them to be second or third options on their team.
I kind of had it as Jaden Higgins was that bridge between the Ibuka, Burden, Golden group and these two guys. With Kyle Williams in there somewhere, it hasn't been it sounds like he's got some work to do to pass up Matt Collins on the depth chart. So it's not like it's been fantastic news for him either. I slightly preferred Bech just because I was more confident that he could do more things an NFL wide receiver is going to be asked to do. I think Trey Harris probably has a little bit more upside, but Bech is more likely to be able to get onto the field. Whereas I just don't, I need more proof, I think, proof of concept with Trey Harris. We had a couple more guys we wanted to talk about, and I'm hoping you have an answer to this because I'm almost frustrated by it. But have we learned anything at all about Travis Hunter's snap shares on offense and defense?
I think it's hilarious that the Jags trolled everyone by announcing his contract as a cornerback. But to me, I think what they've done reaffirms my feelings. They started him out in OTAs on offense and doing offense only, and then they slowly started to work him in on defense. So to me, I think that tells you he's going to be offense first and defense second. So to me, I'm not worried about it. If people are freaking out, take advantage, please, because I think he's just too elite of a wide receiver prospect in my eyes.
And you would draft him ahead of Tet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Wide receiver 1 in the class. I remember he was for you guys early on. So you already mentioned Gadsden, the Chargers tight end, who's getting some positive buzz, but still is more of a developmental prospect, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love this film and, graded him out and ranked him based on him being a developmental guy. He's just really fluid in and out of his breaks for a big guy. He needs to add more bulk. So I'm not looking to get much from him this season, but what you've heard out of camp is exactly what I wanted to hear. The tight end coach that coached Darren Waller comping him to Waller and as another guy that converted from a wide receiver to a tight end. I think it's going to be more of a long play, and he's priced appropriately for that. But he's a guy, like you said earlier, grab him if you can. If he's still on waivers, get him ASAP. Put him on your taxi squad, and hopefully reap the benefits a couple years from now.
I mentioned my rookie draft where I have 3 of the top 8 picks. And I'm going to talk about that a lot over the next couple of weeks, guys. Sorry. But it is a tight end premium league, double premium. So 2 catches per reception for tight end, and you're required to start 2 tight ends. So tight ends go crazy in this league. I've got those 3 first, then I have 1 third-round pick. In that format, is the third too early for a Getson, or is that about where? Because I know he's probably a 4th or later in a normal, even probably a 1.5 tight end premium. But if you have double tight end premium, you start 2 tight ends. I'm being really selfish, asking questions for myself.
Yes.
Is he worth a third-round pick in that format, you think?
Absolutely, I think so. Yeah. I had him late third, kind of after this news. So with starting 2 tight ends and 2 points per reception for a tight end, absolutely.
Well,
I would take him in the third.
Let's hope nobody else in the league is listening to this show. Let's take our second break, and then I want to dive into the 2026 draft class, specifically guys that you should watch this fall.
It's the Big 3
On CBS.
Miami coming in hot. Big 3 is on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
So I don't try to make any illusions about how much college football I watch during the NFL football season. I watch more film of college football in January, February, and March than I do during the actual college football season. But there are times on a Saturday where I don't have stuff that I need to make up to my wife for the fact that I work too much the rest of the week, that I catch a game or two, and I definitely follow the news. So I wanted to, for people who are like me and are just kind of casually following college football, I'd kind of like to get into some of the names that we need to keep an eye on this year to determine, because it seems like, and maybe let's just start with this question. When I asked you about the 25, 26, 27 class, you talked about how excited we are for 2027 and how good the running backs are in 2025. And you didn't mention 2026. And I don't know, I've heard 2 different things. 1, that it's a down year. 2, that people who do this and follow this feel like they have no idea what to expect from rookie drafts a year from now.
Yeah, that's good. The exact same kind of feeling I get. I'm like you, where I don't follow college football in the season.
Right.
I'm in 2 developmental Debbie leagues where you draft guys that are underclassmen or high school. So I get into it a little bit during the off season here, and but my 2 co-hosts, Matt Jackson and Matt Cooper, are like deep into this, and my feeling is there's some really good guys at the top end, but it's really to be determined how good the draft is going to be overall.
Let's start with the quarterback position. Who are you kind of paying attention to or hopeful for in 2026?
I'll just name a couple of the top names and then one specific that I'm looking at. It looks like Cape Klubnik from Clemson is the consensus QB1 at this point. Lenore Sellers is probably the highest upside guy for fantasy purposes with his rushing upside. I watched some of his film in our film room, and I liked what I saw. I saw him going through progressions, which I wasn't expecting to, especially in the red zone, working from the right all the way back to his backside and, finding guys open for a touchdown. He took off running quite a bit, but I did also see times where he would start to take off the run. He keeps his head up, sees a guy open, resets his feet, and delivers a strike. So there's definitely some encouraging things to see there from Sellers. The guy I'm really interested to watch is Garrett Nussmeier. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, from LSU. The last 2 years, I watched a ton of wide receiver film
Obviously,
for
yes.
LSU, and I've really liked every time I've come away impressed with Garrett. Does he have the greatest physical traits? No. He's 6'2", a little over 200 pounds. Does he have a rifle of arm? No. But to me, he's accurate, plays with anticipation. You see him at times making adjustments at the line of scrimmage, which is encouraging to me. His dad's an offensive coordinator, so I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be pro-ready, and looks like a player that could really succeed in a West Coast offense or a Shanahan-style offense.
Do you have any hope that the 2026 quarterback class is better than the 2025 quarterback class?
I think it will be for sure.
Okay.
2025 was definitely a down year. So I think next year's class is going to be better, and for sure.
Let's talk about a position where next year's class will definitely not be better, and that's the running back position. Are there any running backs left in college that are any good? Or they just all come out this year?
Oh, such a good point. I think we need to set expectations. We're probably not going to see a running back class like this year for another 10 years or so.
Right.
Of just incredible depth. And the guy I'm going to be watching, like everyone knows Jeremiah Love, going to be the RB1, probably pretty much locked and loaded. A guy that could have come out this year and went back, Nick Singleton of Penn State. I watched some of his tape before he decided to go back, which I was a little surprised by, but also get him looking at the class, feel like he's so loaded, I may get buried down past the third round, like a lot of other really talented running backs. So I'm really intrigued to see how this gamble of his plays out. He's 6 foot, almost 230 pounds, and he just has some blazing speed, like just electric with the ball in his hands. But he also has another really good running back in Katron Allen to deal with at Penn State. So may he have a Travion Henderson situation where he loses all these touches to Judkins and isn't at the top of the consensus this year. So to me, that was a gamble that's really going to be interesting to see if it pays off. But I really liked what I've seen from him.
Okay. And then at wide receiver, this was kind of a down year, although if Travis Hunter's as good as you and I think he's going to be, then maybe not, because Tedrow McMillan could be really good, Abuka could be really good, and maybe the wide receiver class was a little bit undersold this year. But what does 2026, I know 2027 is what we're all dreaming about at wide receiver. Is there anybody that's going to help us in 2026?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some guys. It's definitely disappointing after 2024's rookies and then what we had to look forward to in 2027. But there's some guys at the top that look really promising. Jordan Tyson from Arizona State kind of looks like Ted McMillan to me when I watch him. And another big guy that's fluid, really knows how to high point the ball and box out. Athletic, has really good body control. A guy I'm going to be really watching is Cornell Tate from Ohio State. Had to sit behind Abuka and Jeremiah Smith.
Right.
He was highly recruited coming out, really fluid athlete at 6'3", but little on the slender side at like 193, I think is what he's listed at. But he still had 700 yards last year with Abuka and Jeremiah Smith on his team. So I'm really looking for him to break out and shoot up the wide receiver board this year.
Well, that's kind of what we do at Ohio State, right? Is we get really excited about the guy we got, and then we say, who's next? And there's always 2 or 3 guys that are next at that school. Finally, are there any tight ends that are excited to get excited about in 2026?
There's definitely some. Eric Stokes from Vanderbilt looks like an elite athlete. Seen some crazy comps to Brock Bowers, which I think we should just never, ever comp anybody to Brock Bowers. I think he's 101 as a prospect, but so he looks like a guy that could be the top tight end in the draft next year. Luke, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Haas he was at Arkansas, transferred to Ole Miss to be with Lane Kiffin and their system. I saw him pop for me on tape scouting Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas last year, and they just dealt with some rough quarterback play. But he's the guy who flashed for me watching their film. So I'm really interested to see how he shoots up this year, getting to play with Lane Kiffin and some better quarterback play.
Very good stuff. I got a little bit extra time here, so I'm going to ask you some questions that I didn't prepare you for, so don't feel bad if you don't have an easy answer. But I think one of the things people look at when they're going through their rookie drafts is and I know a lot of you still have those to do. Who's the worst, or maybe at what point in your rookie draft or rookie rankings are you like, okay, I'll take a random 2026 first over this player?
I think by the point, for me, probably Cam Scatterbo, like in the mid-second, is the point. Like after him, I would take a random 2026 first. So
then I think that's a little later than I usually hear. So that kind of indicates maybe the 2026 class not going to be as enticing as the 2025 class. A lot of times in given years, you get to pick 11, pick 12, and you're like, well, I'd rather see if maybe I can get a better pick in the future year. This year, that extends into I assume Scatterbo is around 16, 17, 18 for you?
Yep.
So that extends into the middle of round 1. Looking at it the opposite direction, and I don't know how you feel about this in Dynasty. I know there's mixed emotions. I'm generally I'm going for it or I'm tanking kind of guy. And if I'm going for it, I'm constantly thinking, okay, who's the vet that I can get for a 2026 first and that I don't feel bad giving up that 2026 first. So how far down in the rankings, like when we're looking at guys, maybe some of these veteran running backs like Joe Mixon or Alvin Kamara that we may only have one, the true win now players, or Devontae Adams or David, like those types of players, what type of range do you get in where you're like, I'm fine giving up a 2026 first for this guy?
Ooh, good question.
And I can just throw some names out. Somebody offers you, you're a true contender. Somebody offers you Joe Mixon for a 2026 first. Are you taking that deal?
I don't think I would.
Okay.
Devontae Adams is probably my favorite contender buy, but I don't know if I could give up a first for him.
What about a David Montgomery? Guy might have another year left, but probably not as high end as those guys this year.
Yeah. I think I could, because he's only 27, so he could still have a couple more years left in him.
Somebody in the chat says, I gave up a 2026 first and Ramondre for Christian McCaffrey.
I love that personally, but I might be the biggest Christian McCaffrey fan here. He's just 30 points a game,
right,
when he's healthy. So take the chance if you're a contender, especially if there's someone that's rebuilding.
And I don't really care if I'm giving up Ramondre Stevenson, to be honest. It's because I'm pretty high on Trevion Henderson. And I realize Ramondre could have some value this year, but that's just a throw in that I'm willing to make. And I've got Christian McCaffrey at RB16. He's higher than the other guys that I asked about. I'd be fine doing that, especially if I thought I was a contender and I'm giving up picks 9 through 12. That makes it just a little bit easier. We have some people in the chat who don't like that as much. But Matthew, awesome stuff today, helping us out with the rookies and those 2026 prospects. Tell everybody one more time where they can find your work and what you got coming up.
Yeah. So our podcast is Couch Scouts, and our website's couchscouts.com. So it should be real easy. You can go to our website, check us out. We have a free Discord, links on there, links to our packages, and things like that. We're on all the YouTube, Spotify, Apple Play, or iTunes, and Android.
Anywhere you can get podcasts, right?
Yep,
Thank you very much for joining us today, Matthew. Thank you to Harry, as always, for making everything work. Thank you to you guys who were active in the chat. We will talk to you next Tuesday.